Hi, good day everyone. We are the Group 4 and we're going to discuss the indigenous science and technology in the Philippines. But before that, let us have first our learning objectives. So at the end of this lesson, students should be able to discuss the concept of indigenous science and discuss the contribution of indigenous science in the development of science and technology in the Philippines. So this lesson focuses on indigenous science and technology in the Philippines. So when we say indigenous science, traditional knowledge and indigenous viewpoints are incorporated into this. So in earlier times, Filipinos have attempted to create tools that will aid them in daily life. So they tried to invent tools nga makatabang para sa ilang pang-adlaw-adlaw na panginabuhi. Usa na ini is kanang ilahang mga giimbento nga pana, latigo, or kato ilang mga blowgun. So blowgun if wala mo kaila, or it's also called sumpit in Tagalog, kanang more siya tube manibuho siya sa tunga, then ato i-insert ang murag stick nga mag-serve as ilahang bala. And huyupon from the word itself, blowgun, murag ilahang pusil or lang armas nga through blowing siya, like i-point into their target and i-blow to nila to murag tube, din ato mo taga mo gawas tong ilahang bala, which is kanang na-stick siya, and usually they put poison sa ilahang tumoy sa ilahang stick nga ilang ibala kay para ang target nila is dali kanang matumba. And they also developed alternative ideas in explaining phenomena and in explaining the world around them. So ang tawag ani is indigenous knowledge, which is the basis of indigenous science. So let's dig in more about indigenous knowledge system. So indigenous knowledge is embedded in the daily life experiences of young children as they grow up. So nakalubog na gyud ning indigenous knowledge sa daily life sa experiences sa mga bata, kay syempre maumay ilahang mga naandan, nakita, ginatudlo, ginapractice as they grow up, kay they live and grow in a society where the members of the community prominently practice indigenous knowledge. So their parents and other older folks served as their first teachers, and ang method yun that they are using in teaching are very effective sa pag-transmit sa cultural knowledge into their minds. So ang ilahang mga parents good and older folks ang nag-serve as teacher nila, kay di ba ang formal education man is gina-introduce siya during the Spaniard colonization. So before that katugig mga folks and parents nila ang kanang nag-serve as teachers nila. Then the lessons they learned are intimately interwoven with their culture and environment. So these lessons are comprised of good value and life stories of people on their daily life struggles. So ang mga lessons nga ginatudlo is kanang mga good values like honesty, integrity, love, kindness, courage, and etc. And also mga life stories of people, mga istorya sa kinabuhi. Mga istorya sa kinabuhi o giunsa nila pag-survive sa ilahang sitwasyon. Then their views about nature and their reflection on their experiences in daily life are evident in their stories, poems, and songs. So makita sa ilahang mga kanta, tula, and stories ang ilahang mga kanang paniniwala about nature, and also ang ilahang mga kaagi nga na sinati. And then, so here are some examples of indigenous knowledge. First is predicting weather conditions and seasons using knowledge in observing animals, behavior, and celestial bodies. So kani nga kanang indigenous knowledge, ang gigamit daw nila to predict weather conditions and seasons is through observing animals' behavior and celestial bodies. So I don't know if mutuo ba mo na ang mga animals is makapredict sa mga mahitabo, kay some part man good sa ako is mutuo ko kay naaman good ko yung mga personal experiences or mga videos and documentaries nga kanang nakita nga naka-convince na ako that animals can predict weather conditions and season. Mo na lang ko na to base, mo na to example tong tragic incident nga nahitabo sa Syria, which is katong earthquake that killed thousands of people. So I saw a video that I saw a video. It's actually from their security camera where dogs keep on releasing noises like sigirag awo bitaw like sigira sila tingog during night na siya, during midnight, and before to mahitabo tong katong earthquake. And also ang uban nga mga animals is wala gyud sila mahiluna sa ilahang kanina ay gitbutangan, like uncomfortable sila, nagsige sila luhag-luhag. And also dili lang pud kadto na mga video nga akong nakita nga kanina more may something mahitabo bitaw, and ang mga animals is kanang na like kanang dili like unusual ang ilahang mga kanang na ay nilihukan. Therefore makatuo ko ani nga kanang na ay indigenous knowledge. The next is using herbal medicine. Of course kanipod kaayo, like syempre to ang mga mothers, mga mama ani expert kaayo ani mga herbal medicine, bisag unsa na lang ang ilahang mga ipangtambal. Ako personally makulbaan na lang ko unsay itambal ni kana na mama na ako kay bisag unsa na like paimnon and siya lagaan nga mga gamot-gamot, like worry ko wasig tambal lagi ni or makahilon makahilon ni, pero so far wa man pud ko mahilo nga may inom ko adto. So I think kanang kuan gyud siya kaning herbal medicine is kanay dako po siya katabang nga kaning indigenous knowledge. Then preserving food. So for example ani preserving foods kanina kuan is katong sa una pa nga paagi sa pag-preserve sa foods is through kanang salting, kanang butangan og asin bitaw. For example katong karne is kanang i-preserve nila kanang aot. Then until now is naggamit pa pud na nga type sa pag-preserve sa food. Then classifying plants and animals into families and groups based on cultural properties. So gina-classify nila ang plants and animals into families and groups based on cultural properties. So kani is di ba kay na may mga plants na mabuhi sa yuta, may mga plants na mabuhi sa tubig or sa air, and also same as sa kanina ay animals. So gina-classify na nila based on cultural properties. So katong mga indigenous people. Then preserving and selecting good seeds for planting. So pag-preserve and select good seeds for planting. For example sa corn, di ba kay na may proper way of kanina ay selecting and preserving sa liso niya kay para maoy itanom. So ako kanang nakagi ko insaon ni pag kanang nakakita ko usab pod pag-preserve and pagpili sa liso for planting sa kanang corn kay syempre nag-agi mi og kanang magtanom og mais. And also napapuilain nga kanang naay mga unsaon pagpili and pag-preserve sa mga liso para mas maayo ang tubo sa inyong tanom, dili lang kay basta-basta nga tanom para lang inyong naitanom, di ba? So nice para mas maayo ang kanang naay harvest. Then using indigenous technology in daily lives. So kadto mga ginagamit nila para mabuhi, like kadto mga kanang naay para maka-create of fire. Kaya di ba when we say technology is dili lang mga gamit na mga high-tech karon kay mga cellphone, mga electric fan, and etc. So technology is the application of scientific knowledge, remember? So kato siya discuss na nato sa una. So man to indigenous technology and using indigenous technology in daily lives. Then building local irrigation systems, kaning magbuild sila o kaning ay daluyan agianan sa tubig na more like kanang kanal bitaw siya, basta kay makaagi ang kanay tubig para makaabot sa mga, for example sa kanay sa basakan kay makaabot siya sa tumoy dito, or sa mga kabayanan is makaabot siya sa bisag asang part sa mga bay nay agianan og tubig. By the way, na indigenous irrigation system nga makita sa municipality of Jovegrace, Ilocos Norte, nga gitawag og kanang Zanjera Danum. So you guys can search that on the internet for more details. Then classifying different types of soil for planting based on cultural properties. So kay di ba naman tay klase-klase naman tay different types of soil. So mainly katong tulod is natin sandy, clay, and loamy, kay di ba class different types of soil for planting kay di ba og magtanong ta is kanang may mga plants nga mas prefer ning sandy soil. For example kanang mga carrots, patatas, radish, mga hingana is mas prefer nila kaning sandy loam, but most of the plants kanang mas maayo gyud siya o mas tambok kung kani nga loamy soil. So mana gina-classify po nila ang different types of soil para inig pang tanom. Then next is producing wines and juices from tropical fruits from tropical fruits. Ang example gyud kaayo ani is kaning tuba. Kung nakailaba mo, if you guys know that tuba, or I don't know what that is called in English. I don't know ako kahibaon sana sa Tagalog and in English. Pero basta kanang tuba is kanang gikan na siya. Kay hibaw kung kailan mo kay mga Bisaya ta. So tuba is gikan siya sa lube. And mo po na himuon nga native nga kanang suka nga natural nga suka. Then the last one is keeping the custom of growing plants and vegetables in the yard. So gina-preserve jud ni nga tradition nga kaning mag-gardening. So mabitaw natin hitabo nga bahay kubo, di ba? Kay gipanatili gid nila ang kanang pagpananom sa backyard or sa anything nga basta natay kayutaan, natay gitawag pud nga baul nga pwede adto dito kanang mananom. Mga mananom og kanang naay tanom. So muna gina-preserve nila ang tradition nga sa gardening. So that's all for my topic. I hope nga naamoy nakatunan. If you guys do have any questions, clarifications, suggestions, violent reactions, or anything else, you can just directly message me. You know where to contact me. Or you can just comment onto this video and just mention my name so that I will notice immediately. So once again, that's all for my part. Thank you so much for watching and I hope nga naminaw gyud mo. Char lang. So for the continuation, Miss Jovegrace Hinghing will handle you. Please do not skip kay magmahay mo. Charot, di ba? Gwapa ang next reporter, therefore take time to watch kay kamursad ang maka-benefit aning nga lesson. So that's all. Miss Hinghing, enter na.
So good day. I am Jovegrace Hinghing and I am here to discuss Indigenous science. According to Gribbin on 2001, and MCAPA and CBC on 2004, Indigenous science is a part of the indigenous knowledge system practiced by different groups of people and early civilization. So, what comes to your mind if you hear the word indigenous? According to Oxford Languages, indigenous is someone or something originating or occurring particularly in one place, or what we called native. Indigenous people or Aboriginal people were living on their lands before settlers came from elsewhere. So, for examples, the Igorots, Manobos, Ifugaos, and Tibulis from the Philippines. They have their own culture and practices that contributed to make their lives comfortable and easier. This indigenous science help indigenous people to predict weather conditions, selecting crops and seeds, used as an herbal medicine, preserving foods, and other practices. Indigenous science includes complex arrays of knowledge, expertise, practices, and representations that guide human societies in their innumerable interactions with the natural milieu. According to Cajete in 2004, indigenous science includes everything, from metaphysics to philosophy and various practical technologies practiced by indigenous people, both past and present. So, it includes how indigenous people think and how they exist. It is the basis of their knowledge and being. Iacarino, in 2003, elaborated this idea by explaining that science is a part of culture and how science is done largely depends on cultural practices of the people. Indigenous beliefs also develop desirable values that are relevant or consistent to scientific attitudes as identified by Johnston on 2000. Namely, first, motivating attitudes. The practices of motivating people by influencing their thoughts and behaviors. It is simply motivating others. Next is cooperating attitudes. It influences a person's desire and willingness to cooperate and produces an emotional response. Third, practical attitudes, making sensible decisions and choices. So it is a complex mental state involving beliefs and feelings and values and dispositions act in a certain ways. Lastly, the reflective attitudes. It is the willingness to think about things that you don't understand. These cultural beliefs, therefore, can be good foundation for developing positive values toward learning and doing science and bringing science in a personal level. In examples, Pawilin explained that indigenous science knowledge has developed diverse structures and contents through the interplay between the society and the environment. According to Kuhn, the developmental stages of most sciences are characterized by continual competition between a number of distinct views of nature, each partially derived from and all roughly compatible with the dictates of scientific observation and methods. Sibisi also pointed out that indigenous science provides the basics of astronomy, pharmacology, food technology, and metallurgy are examples of traditional knowledge and practices. So, indigenous science help people in comprehending myriads of phenomena in the world. For example, the farmers developed their understanding of rain patterns, classifying soil, selecting good crops, and creating terraces. Indigenous science is important in the development of science and technology in the Philippines. Like the ancient civilizations, indigenous science gave birth to the development of science and technology as a field and as a discipline. Indigenous science helped the people in understanding the natural environment and in coping with everyday life. So that's all for my part. The next topic will be reported by Miss Mellijor.
So, thank you, Miss Jovegrace Hinghing. I am Jherica Mellijor, the next reporter. So, Powell in 2006 developed a simple framework for understanding indigenous science. Accordingly, indigenous science is composed of traditional knowledge that uses process skills and guided by community values and cultures. So this is the concept of indigenous science. Indigenous science uses science process skills such as observing, comparing, classifying, measuring, problem solving, inferring, communicating, and predicting. These are the thinking skills used by scientists, teachers, and students when doing science. So, the science process skills are not only about formal acting hypotheses and determining variables but also involving other skills such as observing, interpreting data, and communicating that are trained in this study. So, science process skills are the things that scientists do when they study and investigate. Indigenous science is guided by culture and community values such as the following. So the land is a source of life. It is a precious gift from the Creator. The earth is revived as Mother Earth. It is the origin of their identity as people. All living and non-living things are interconnected and independent with each other. Human beings are stewards or trustee of the land and other natural resources. They have responsibility to preserve it. Nature is a friend to human beings. It was respect and properly care. So indigenous science is composed of traditional knowledge, practices, and valued by people and communities such as ethnobiology, ethnomedicine, indigenous farming, and folk astronomy. So the ethnobiology is the scientific study of dynamic relationships among people, biota, and environments. So, for example, we now study how species are domesticated and the origins and development of agriculture, the management of useful plant and animal populations, process of traditional knowledge, acquisition, and organization. So, the ethnomedicine is a traditional medical practices concerned with the cultural interpretation health, disease, and illness that addresses the healthcare process and healing process. So, some examples of ethnomedical healers are midwives. So, familiar naman taning midwives, diba? So, like doulas, herbalists, bone setters, surgeons, and shamans, whose ethnomedicine exists in cultural traditions around the world prior to biomedicine. So, the farming indigenous are local knowledge developed in a community that accumulated from farmers' experience and practices through planting. So, this includes terracing, crop rotation, mixed cropping, soil fertility management, and sweet potato cropping system. So lastly is the folk astronomy. So an example of folk astronomy is like told us that the world is flat. Celestial bodies revolve around the earth and the planets are wandering gods who determine our future. So indigenous science is important in the development of science and technology in the Philippines. Like the ancient civilization, indigenous science gave birth to the development, science and technology as a field and as a discipline. So, indigenous science helped the people in understanding the natural environment and coping with everyday life. UNESCO's declarations on science and indigenous science as a historical and valuable contribution to science and technology. Any clarifications or questions regarding to my discussion? If none, I give the floor to Miss Jovegrace Hinghing.